I believe that every woman has a story. And I believe that within our lived stories is so much wisdom that's meant to be shared. Welcome to Authentic Storytelling, my friend. I'm Linda Joy, a storytelling guide, publisher of Aspire magazine, best-selling publisher at Inspired Living Publishing, and I am honored to bring you this mini-series of transformational conversations of women who boldly and courageously said yes to sharing their story. So welcome and thank you for circling up with us. Today, we are talking to Karen Shier. And in this conversation, I think there's going to be so many threads of wisdom and ahas of your own experiences that you can relate to. And in every episode of Authentic Storytelling, you'll meet empowered women like Karen who share the wisdom, lessons, and transformation they experienced, not only writing their sacred soul story, but also through each woman's conversation, you're going to discover how those lessons can empower you to rewrite the stories you are telling yourself so that you can craft a new story, one that aligns with your highest truth. So let me tell you a little bit about Karen, and then we're going to dive into our conversation. Karen Shier is a midlife transformation guide, desire factor and law of attraction life coach, energy master, best-selling author, and I'm honored to say an expert columnist for Aspire magazine, who guides women in releasing what no longer lights them up so they can joyfully thrive in the second half of life. Isn't that what we all yearn for, my friends? She is passionate about helping and supporting women in moving from feeling stuck, stressed, and unhappy to feeling free, empowered, and ready to co-create a marvelous life. You can learn more at KarenShierCoaching.com, and all her other enticing details are down below in the show notes. Welcome, Karen.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm excited to be here. This is going to be a good conversation.
Yeah, because, full transparency, Karen's published in a few of our books and gone through our authentic storytelling process. And there is a lot of healing that can be done through our stories. And that's why I wanted to do this series, because sometimes we judge our journey, we judge our experiences. And I've come to learn, and many of these conversations are going to show you that even in our darkest times, we're being prepared for what's to come. So there's always like these pieces of wisdom. I love starting every conversation off with a quote from their story. And I'm all about intentional life, intentional living, intentional business. So Karen's story, her quote really speaks to me, and I believe it's going to speak to you too. When we adapt, set our intentions, surrender and trust that all will flow smoothly with ease and grace, it will. Whew. As you know from our personal conversation, surrender and trust is a really big part of my life. And that's coming from a recovering control freak and micromanager of the divine. It's when I learned to stop holding on so tightly to things of how I wanted it, that's when breakthroughs came. And today's conversation will be covering your story, which is consciously orchestrating a life-changing move, which appeared in Divine Synchronicity. And so we're going to go through some questions, Karen, but I first wanted to say I'm so grateful that you're here, my friend.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I am too. This is so much fun, and it's fun to share the wisdom, and especially coming from someone who was also a micromanager of the divine in my past life. So we totally relate. So it's a lovely opportunity to get together.
And too, and I believe that when we put out stories like this and pieces of parts of our journey, there's someone listening in that moment who is like, oh my God, I can really relate to this, or I'm going through this. And this is why I do what I do. So thank you again for circling up with myself and Karen. So Karen, as I'm going through, I ask all my guests on the Authentic Storytelling episodes the same questions, because the universal questions and everybody's answer is going to be different. And there's so much wisdom in that. And I'm so excited. So, what would you say is the key theme or life lesson that is shared in your story, um, consciously orchestrating a life-changing move? What would be that key element, do you feel?
And, I think for this particular story, and for this particular situation, it was um playing with the divine and being curious, opening to the possibility of things going right instead of focusing on whatever it was going wrong. Because in our humanness, we always kind of, what if this happens? What if that happens? And we go into that fear-based thinking. But it was about, for me, setting clear expectations, joyfully expecting things to go well, things to go smoothly, and then taking the inspired actions. It's not just about waiting for the things to happen. You do have to take an inspired action. Um, Surrendering. We talked about surrendering already, and trusting in that divine timing. And I guess it's learning and knowing how, when those little what ifs come up and those little fear-based, thoughts come up, it's learning and knowing how to soothe and quiet the whisperings of that little inner critic inside when they arise. So really, in this story, it was really about me not dropping into that fear-based thinking I would have done in the past. Um, so.
And I think that's something we can all relate to, because your story is about when you were selling your home and looking for that new one. And ladies, if you've ever had that experience, and many of us have, I'll tell you, it's a really stressful time. And we can go into fear. We can go into, well, I'm going to make this happen. And it takes away so much of our personal sacred energy. And so just hearing her title, consciously orchestrating a life-changing a move. I love that word consciously, because you chose in that moment of time that you wanted to make it a joyful experience. You tapped into all of your law of
Mhm.
attraction teachings and what you do as a leader. And when I read your story, I'm like, oh, it made the process so much more fun and light. Did it feel like it took that pressure off you? Because you used the word earlier, playing.
Mhm.
How did that
Yeah, for
feel?
for sure. And like you said, being a law of attraction life coach, I kind of looked at this situation. It was kind of a snap decision. And then we go into okay, what are we going to do? How are we going to do this? Right. And I went into this situation and intentionally treated it as a divine law of attraction experiment. I mean, that's how I viewed it going in. And I figured, you know what, this is a perfect situation to test it out and see on in a real world situation, how's this going to go. Um, so I did. I decided to consciously play with my energies. I was very focused, and I even got my hubby involved too.
Yeah.
So, and that was fun. When um, the what ifs come up and the lower level fears, what we did is we supported each other and said, nope, we're not going to go there. We're just not going to do that. And it worked out so well. It kept, like you mentioned, the situation was so much lighter and so much more fun, because that is one of the major stressors is, you know, selling and moving and all the stuff that goes along with that. And in the past, I didn't approach those things in that way. And they were always filled with, you know, what if the house doesn't sell? What if the roof leaks? What if the interest rates are too high? Whatever it was, you go into that fear-based thinking. And this time I'm like, nope, I am not going to do that. And just kind of I went with it, and was very conscious and deliberate in how we did this, and it flowed with amazing ease. I still pinch myself um, as to how the whole situation went.
Well, what I love about the story too is to me, the message, along with selling and buying a house and all of the actual, what it looks like in the outside physical world, it was, as I read your story, it reminded me of, Lynn, all the times that you held on so tightly,
Mhm,
when I was micromanager of the divine, for the first 30, 40 years of my life, I made life harder.
mhm,
Situations didn't make life harder. I made it harder by how I was trying to control my sense of safety, I guess, my sense of wanting things to unfold according to Linda's timeline. Okay, by this
mhm.
date. And now it's like I listen, I receive, and it's so much more playful. Now, listen, Karen and I are both human. Yes, we still fall back into, her
Yeah.
and I know, fear-based thoughts or wanting to micromanage. But when you have the tools, and as the title of her story shares, when you consciously choose new thoughts and then recalibrate and go, oh, wait a minute, I said I was going to make this process fun and I'm going back to my old ways. Don't beat yourself up about that. I still do
Mhm.
it. And I've been practicing these principles now 33 years. And it still happens. Don't judge yourself. Okay. So we're going to go to question number 2. How did writing your soul story in the Divine Synchronicity book with Inspired Living Publishing help heal, empower, or inspire you on your own self-discovery journey?
I love the whole process. I love the whole process of writing and learning how to become a storyteller. And um it's an emotional release. It's allowing you to express yourself and express your feelings. And you know this this story probably seems a little bit innocuous, buying and selling a house. The other stories I wrote were um more, I wanna I don't know, maybe more healing, I guess, from that sense. But it's a healing process, and it's allowing you to have a voice, and it's allowing you to get those things out and really think about them and go deep and share your story and share what you learned and share with the world so that maybe you can help that next person that reads that story. And that's what's so great about not only this book, but just the whole process of moving through it.
That's beautifully said. And, for those who are listening and new to my brands, authentic storytelling is about diving deeper into the stories we
Mhm.
tell as a way to break free of self-imposed limitations that we may be carrying that we don't even know, so that we can embrace a new narrative for our life. It's not about simply writing a story when you work with the authentic storytelling process. It's not simply writing that story about an experience that you had. It's about reframing the story from the person you are today and the wisdom and lessons learned along the way. And Karen, from many of the author calls from the numerous books that you've been in, so many women have shared, and I believe you were one of them, that said, I thought when I chose this story, for whatever book it was, that it was for this one reason. But then as I went into the writing process, I realized, oh, I still had some healing to do around the
Mhm.
unfolding of that story. And they realized authentic storytelling, the model that we use in Inspire Living Publishing since 2010, is really as much a healing tool as it is an editorial writing style tool. Did you find that, whether in this book or the other books?
Oh, for sure, for sure. It allows you to go deeper and explore and play, and you're right, those things come up that need to be healed. Even in this journey, in this story, when I looked back at how I'd handle these situations in the past. I've been fortunate to have owned several homes, and I've went through this process many times over many decades. And so just taking my training and my learning and my self-awareness that I have now that I didn't have then, it's such a great opportunity to just play and see how it all how it all worked out, and how it all worked out so immensely well compared to when I went into the what if thinking in the past, and into those old stories and those old ways of being. So the storytelling, and this whole process is just, it's amazing. It gets you to think differently, it gets you to react differently, and it's very fun to play.
I love that. And one of the things too is writing the story and then seeing it get published. And I know you believe this from the work you do in the world, it creates a ripple effect because someone could be in that circumstance right now, and we'll relate this to your story, selling and purchasing a house, and they're stuck in the muck, and then they
Mhm.
come across your story in divine synchronicity, and they're like, oh, there's a new way of being. And in all the books I've published, we've published 21 to date, when we've published over, I think, 320 authors and stories since 2010. I hear time and time again from women who read the books. In fact, I'll give you a quick story. I just walked into a local shop that I visit quite often, and I live in a town, not a big city. And she goes, oh my God, my girls loved your book. And I said, which one? She said, Divine Synchronicity. She goes, I gave each of my daughters, who are both in their 20s, a copy of for Christmas. And she goes, Linda, they just curled up and they were enthralled reading about other women's journeys. And I go, that's why I do this. I want every woman, including myself and Karen and every reader, to realize how we look at the story we're living sets the container of how we're going to experience it. Like you chose to experience it from the the energy of play, surrender, trust. And I hope and know that that is going to inspire other women to go, maybe I'll play and try it. So, as we come to a close, and we're going to still be chatting, but this is your final question. As we come to a close, what's the wisdom, sacred reminder, or life lesson that you hope women walk away with after reading your story?
I think for me, I think it's the underlying thing I try to get across, and I try to teach, frankly, is play in the energy of the focus, in the energy of what you want instead of what you don't. Allow yourself to play with the universe, with God, with source, with goddess, whomever that is for you. Then trust and surrender. Go in with clarity, go in with intention, but then trust and surrender. And I guess don't just put on a positive face. I mean, we can, the old adage, put lipstick on a pig, right? but
Mm.
but really immerse yourself and put your intentions out with clarity, and be open to the divine, be open to what's going to unfold for you. And when you joyfully expect, you're going to be surprised that the outcome is likely going to be so much greater, so much better than what you can imagine within the limits of your humanness, right? We can only, I guess, expect so much, or because we put limits on ourselves.
Yeah.
But there's such a greater plan out there for us. There's such greater things that can come our way if we just trust and surrender. And it may not look like what you wanted to control it to look like. It's probably going to be so much better. And I guess the underlying thing is just always, when you're in any kind of situation, focus on what you want and not on what you don't.
Ooh, that's a big one, and it circles back to the beginning of the story. If you had chose to, this has to sell by this date, and I got to find this house, and it has to be exactly perfect, then what I see happens is it's like blinders go on. We don't see any more possibility because we're so controlling things. And we tend to focus so tightly on what we want instead of trusting and surrendering. I'm sorry, on what we don't want.
You won't want. Yep.
And I think that's human nature, ladies. So if you do that, don't judge yourself. But the moment you're aware, like, do I really want to call this in? Just shift. Because
Mhm.
I lived that way I was always like, oh, worst case scenario, worst case scenario. This is going to happen, especially in my younger years. And now I choose, as Karen said, to focus on what I want. And it's for a selfish reason. And that reason is I want to feel good in my life. I want to feel
Mhm.
joyful. I want to feel peaceful. I want to feel grounded. And when I was in that other energy, I sure didn't feel like any of that. because I was like holding on so tight. Now it's like, I'm going to trust and I'm going to release and I'm going to play. And I love that focus on what you want instead of what you don't want, because the world programs us to look at everything that's wrong. And you
Mhm.
know, because we've been connected for a long time, I'm like, focus on the blessings, ladies. Stop focusing on the bullshit, because what you focus
Mhm.
on is what you're going to get. And I choose to focus on the blessings. And
For sure.
yeah, and Cameron, you teach that in the work that you do in the world. And, I'm so grateful, one, that you've been sharing your stories with the readers of Inspired Living Publishing's books, um, the work you're doing with women. And I have all Cameron's information down below in the show notes, but I want to say her URL. Again, it's KarenShierCoaching.com. Get on over there, but be sure to check the show notes for more information. And you can read her empowering story, as well as many of the other authors in the international bestseller, Divine Synchronicity, Women's Stories of Magic, Miracles, and Manifesting. And you can get that at any retailer, or you can go to divinesynchronicitybook.com and grab your copy there. Karen, thank you, my friend, for being such a light in the world and in my own life. I'm so glad our paths have merged.
Thank you so much. And there's a divine reason our paths have crossed. So thank you. Thank you for all your support too.
And ladies, I want to leave you with a closing message. Um, if you're not happy in the story you're living, the beautiful message is you get to rewrite your story at any time. So
Mhm.
you hold the pen, my friends. Blessings, and I'll see you on the next episode.